the things that are the most difficult can have the most beautiful results. When I was little, I really missed my mother. She worked full-time, and then she went to law school at night. I was 8 years old, and my sister Catherine was 7. And so we really missed her, but somehow we understood that she was working on a goal that was really big, and we somehow understood that this was all about elevating our family financially and securing our family's future. Specifically, to earn more money to send me and Catherine to college when we reached college age, because our father was much older. And so while our mother was at law school during Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings, our father became Mr. Mom. He would cook dinner after working a full day in an office. He would take us to piano lessons, oversee homework. He would take us to all kinds of activities like swimming lessons, ice skating with our friends, ski lessons, the library. And then he would make sure we got ready for bed, and he made sure we went to sleep on time to get ready for school the next day. We wouldn't see our mother until the next morning. So while our mother was at law school at night and we were doing our homework, our father was sitting at the dining room table journaling. He would fill steno notebook after steno notebook with his beautiful, elegant script. And he would chronicle from the mundane details that we had meatloaf for dinner, for example, or the magnificent moments that come with having a family, and the very courageous story of him leaving the Catholic Church during the 1960s to marry a woman who was 25 years younger and half black and half Italian. They defied convention, and they broke barriers of race and religion, and it was quite scandalous. In fact, the bishop damned them to hell, and they believed it.
Was Nikki, who was over the Saginaw Diocese, knew of our relationship. The Diocese of Saginaw Chancery, which was the administrative arm of the diocese, knew who I was, where I lived, and they had my telephone number. I received a call from the bishop's secretary. He informed me that the bishop wanted to speak with me personally as soon as possible. I immediately told Lee. He was distraught. He believed the bishop would attempt to convince me to end the relationship, since he was still being disobedient by not submitting himself to a psychological examination or moving out of the area as he had been directed to do. I assured him that I would be all right. 2 days later, I went to the bishop's residence on Washington Avenue. The huge, ominous-looking house sat back on an equally huge lot. When I rang the doorbell, the bishop's secretary, a priest, greeted me. He escorted me into the bishop's office. "Sit here," he instructed, pointing to a chair with a very high cushioned back. A few minutes later, the bishop entered the room wearing all his bishop regalia and a very serious look on his face. I immediately rose to my feet. He did not look at me as he extended his hand for me to kiss his bishop's ring, which was the custom. I knew the drill. He walked around the desk and sat down, and I sat back down. He began slowly and methodically. "It has come to my attention that you are carrying on an affair with a priest in the diocese, Father Thomas Lee Atkins. Is that true?" I responded politely. "I am in a relationship with him, Your Excellency. You realize, of course, Miss Bowman," that was my maiden name, "that this affair is illicit and sinful, don't you?" "No, Your Excellency," I said respectfully. "I do not. Father Atkins has left the priesthood, and you even suspended him as of June the 9th of this year. He is no longer a priest." He immediately shot back in a hoarse tone. "That is not true. Being suspended from priestly duties does not mean he's not automatically a member of the clergy. Instead of carrying on an affair with him, you should be assisting all of us who are concerned about his well-being, including his mother and sister, in trying to get him into an institution so that he can be psychologically evaluated." That's what they did back in the day when a priest wanted to leave the priesthood. You had to go to a psychiatric hospital. I am confident that after the proper care in an institution, he would be able to return to his duties, which I would then restore to him if he was medically fit to serve. I am advising you that he is already married to Mother Church for the rest of his life. I'm also advising you that such an affair rises to the level of a mortal sin. Are you not concerned about your eternal salvation? Your actions will surely put you in hell after you suffer excommunication from the church. Do you have anything to say, young lady? No, Your Excellency, I do not. He rose from his chair and walked toward me. I stood up. He said very emphatically, "The two of you are creating a scandal in the diocese, and it must stop. If you choose to continue, you and he must leave Saginaw. Do you understand?" "Yes, I do." He extended his hand again, and I kissed his ring. He turned and walked toward the door. With his back to me, he said, "I trust this will be the only time we will need to have this conversation."
But then Catherine and I came along as two symbols of that colorblind love and courage, and we proceeded to emulate many of the things we were witnessing in our parents. So from our father, Catherine and I started journaling. We started writing in those little diaries that have a little lock on them with a key. And then from our mother, we learned the discipline and the sacrifice of hard work and how it would ultimately pay off in a big way for her and all of us. And so it was very difficult when we didn't get to see her during the week very much, except in the morning. But every morning she would get up and she would make us our lunch boxes. She would make us a sandwich with a little fruit cup and a Hostess cupcake or some kind of treat, and give us our money for the milk machine at school where we'd get our chocolate milk and enjoy our lunch with our friends. And somehow Catherine and I always knew that we were supposed to behave and get excellent grades. It was like we understood it was our part of this family mission to elevate ourselves. At the same time, our parents showed us the importance of colorblind love and treating everyone with equality and justice and compassion. So we lived in Oak Park, Michigan, and we had neighbors who were Holocaust survivors and Orthodox Jewish people. We had neighbors who were new immigrants from Russia, which was at the time, it was during the Cold War, during the 70s, so they had come to the United States. We had neighbors who had fled Christian persecution in Iraq. Iraqi Christians are called Chaldeans. And so they would tell us their stories of escaping oppression and danger. We had neighbors who were African American, white, Asian, and we lived in this beautiful melting pot community where everybody got along, and it was just a wonderful experience. At the same time, our father was president of the Saginaw Valley Indian Association, and he actually wore a belt buckle that was made of sterling silver and turquoise in the shape of a Native American thunderbird. And he also wore a Jewish Star of David made of jade around his neck. So we grew up in a very unique environment, and it was all about treating everybody with equality, compassion, justice, and love. Our mother graduated from law school. She passed the bar exam on her first time, and she steadily rose up a career ladder that led her to become the longest serving chief judge of Detroit's 36th District Court. So that was a major triumph. And she often says, "I didn't become a lawyer to save the world. I became a lawyer to save my family."
I get married in 1971. I look at my husband, who's almost 50, and I look at my two small children who are playing in the floor, and I started counting the years. And what I came up with was when it was time for him to retire, it was going to be time for them to go to college. And I said, I looked at him and I said, "I gotta get back to school." He said, "Yeah, we know you're gonna do that, but you don't have to do it right now, do you?" I said, "I do." And I told him what I came up with. And he very graciously said, well, I don't have to retire at 65. We needed 15 years for me to get some money to be able to put them through college. And so I returned to Saginaw Valley. It was still Saginaw Valley College, I think, in 1971. Then the names changed like 2 or 3 times until it got to Saginaw Valley State University, which is wonderful. So I go back, I get my degree in psychology in 1973, and so I'm working for the state, and this money isn't going to work. I need more money than this. So I said, going to law school. We'll go to law school, and hopefully I can get in something where the money will keep going up. I did not go into law to save the world. I went into law to save my family, to be able to take care of my family. So I go to law school. We moved to Detroit. I finished University of Detroit Law School in 1980, and then there's such a thing as being in the right place at the right time and having all of your ducks in order. And from my law school degree, I was able to work at getting appointments, gubernatorial appointments. I worked for Frank Kelly, and then in 1991, I became a magistrate in 36th District Court. 94, I became a judge in 36th District Court. 2000, I become the chief judge, and by the appointment by the Michigan Supreme Court, and they appoint me 6 times, and that's how I got to be the longest serving chief judge in the history of that court. But my point is, I go from foster care to being chief judge of one of the major courts in the country. It's one of the largest courts in the country. And how did I do that? What do you have to do in order to get those ducks in order, be in the right place at the right time, have the right mindset, and kind of wiggle your way and know the right people, and just make up your mind that this is what you're going to do. I don't know what your goal in front of you is, but I have to tell you, mine was my family. That was it. It was my family and being able to educate our children.
And so it was one of the busiest and biggest courts in the country, and she was very popular as chief judge and respected by the media and respected by people who frequented the court on a daily basis. We were very proud of our mother's accomplishment. Sadly, our father, who died in 1990, didn't live to see her become a judge, but he did live to see her put us both through the University of Michigan. We were English majors, and we continued our journaling practice that we learned from him, and we worked hard because we understood the value of that, having watched our mother study in the evenings with her big giant law books and while Daddy took care of us and made dinner and took us camping and visiting relatives, also she could study past the bar. Catherine and I both got master's degrees in writing. I have a master's degree in journalism from Columbia University, and Catherine has a master's degree in writing from the University of San Francisco. And so both of us began careers in publishing and writing, and I worked at the Detroit News as a reporter, and she worked at a newspaper called the Reno News and Review for a number of years, and we both continued to write. And so later I started writing books, offering my services as a ghostwriter to write memoirs for accomplished people with fascinating stories. Catherine then pursued a career in financial services, and she got all the certifications and really excelled in that field. Well, at one point we came together and we said, let's start a company. Let's call it Two Sisters Writing and Publishing, and we'll take my experience with writing books and your experience in finance and pair them together and run a company. And so we did that. In 2016, we created our company, and we have since published 24 books, many of which we wrote ourselves under our own names, and others that we wrote as ghostwriters for clients across America and published. And then many people have always told our mother, you should write a book.
I have the honor of being able to have a book signing this afternoon. I want to spend just a few minutes to tell you a little bit about myself. Both of my daughters, Elizabeth and Catherine, had been encouraging me to write my story for a number of years, and I hesitated for two reasons. Number one, I did not think I had a story that was worth a book, and number two, if you're going to do an autobiography, you've got to be true and tell the bad with the good. Bad things happened to me in my life, and I was not sure if I wanted to share those things with the world. I overcame my reluctance. I sat down in 2016, December 2016. I started writing, and I finished it in May of 17, and I'm glad I did. I was born in Detroit in 1946. See, I can see her. Okay, she's, I'll tell you, I'm 72. I'll save you the math word. My biological mother was a young Italian girl. My biological father was her secret black boyfriend. The Italian said, because I'm biracial, I could not join the family, so I'm placed in foster care. At the age of 6 months, I'm adopted by a black couple from Saginaw. That's how I got here. My adoption was a blessing and a curse, because back then it was difficult to find homes for biracial children, and so I was lucky in that regard. It was a curse because my adoptive mother was both psychologically and physically abusive. At the age of 12, a child should not be saying, if I die during one of these beatings, it must be okay because a parent owns a child, and if they kill the child because the child has done something they didn't like, it must be okay. At the age of 12, I decided I had to go along to get along with this woman until I could get away from her. Now, what her type of parenting did was to make me not only fear her, but to fear failure. My adoptive father was a real gem, but he was under the complete control of his wife. I had to be the perfect child or face her wrath. I had to make the honor roll every marking period, play classical music on the piano, play the organ, and be the perfect kid. All the while she's telling me in one ear, you're never going to amount to anything. This dichotomy I never understood, and I didn't have time to figure it out because I was trying to please her all the time and be a good girl. I married a former Roman Catholic priest at the age of 20, Thomas Lee Atkins. He was white, and he was 25 years my senior. By age 22, I was the mother of 2 children, 2 daughters. I completed Saginaw Valley College in 1973 and went on to the University of Detroit Law School, where I earned my Juris Doctor in 1980. I received 2 appointments from former Governor Jim Blanchard, and I was appointed to the 36th District Court bench by former Governor John Engler in 1994.
Because of the very unique story that she experienced and all the circumstances around our parents' scandalous marriage and the uniqueness of having a mixed race family and Daddy's story of being a former priest and how the love and unity between his family blossomed over the years. It's just a beautiful, beautiful story. And so people were always telling her, you should write a book, The Triumph of Rosemary. Rosemary was the birth name she had as a baby, and you can see the picture right here of her as a baby. Here's my father in his priest collar, and then here's our family photo when we were very small, and that's her in her judge's robe. So it's called The Triumph of Rosemary because she triumphed over the circumstances of her birth, where she very easily could have become a statistic. She came out strong, survivor, example to others, and especially to me and Catherine, to show the importance of setting goals. She would always say, you have to plan your work and work your plan. So she planned her work way back when we were little, and she worked that plan. She worked that plan to the point of exhaustion, but with great success. And so when the book first came out, she had a number of wonderful book signing events. We'd like to present you with these roses, Mom. You're just a phenomenal woman. We love you. We watched you do what you did in the book, but now reading your story as grown women gives us a whole new appreciation for who you are and what you've done with your strength and your perseverance, and we love you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes. Thank you. Catherine was speaking somewhere and she told people that, you know, my mother wrote her book and we're editing it and publishing it. And somebody said, well, what did you learn about your mother that you didn't know? And Catherine said, I learned how my sister was conceived. So. It's kind of like, it's like ragu, it's in there. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
And she was invited back to Saginaw Valley State University to speak, as well as to be a commencement speaker for 5,000 people 2 days in a row at separate commencement ceremonies.
You are now equipped to make a significant difference in this world. In the process, I urge you to keep your integrity intact. Practice the highest level of professionalism. Be tolerant of people who are different and the differences among people. Give back to your family who is stuck with you through thick and thin. Give back to your community, which is so very proud of you today. Give back to this university from which you have received so much. But most of all, be true to yourself, your inner moral code, your convictions, and your dreams. And when you hear the world shout to you, give up, hear the whisper of everyone in this room saying to you, keep going, you got this. Thank you and much success.
And she got rave reviews. Rosemary is an inspiration. This book is difficult to put down. This is a terrific read. Loved your story of triumph. A triumph indeed. A story from the heart and soul. The unique thing is that she wrote her life story, her memoir. I did the same. I wrote, my memoir is called God's Answer is No, Lessons from a Spiritual Life. And of course I begin it with the story of our father baptizing me in the hospital room.
He removed her little cap, held her head in his left hand, and her little body balanced on his left arm, close to his body. He dipped his fingers into the glass of water. As he sprinkled drops of water on her forehead, he said, Elizabeth Ann Atkins, I baptize thee in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. I watched in awe as he baptized his own daughter. I can't. I'm sorry. I should have picked that one to read.
No, that was awesome. Very importantly, I was born in 1967 as there were race riots in cities like LA, Newark, New Jersey, and 12 days after my birth, Detroit, where people died, fires, gunfire, the National Guard, and a racial rift that persists even today in our city. And so I see myself as a symbol of racial unity to bridge the gap, and my life mission became serving as a catalyst for love and peace and human harmony. That was instilled in me by my parents' courageous union. And Catherine, too, uses the written and spoken word to help people come together. And so while she was at the University of San Francisco, she wrote her master's project as a young adult novel called Veronica. Veronica, I heard your mom is black. When we were in elementary school, someone said that to her. So it inspired her to write a book, which turned into a series called the Veronica series of young adult novels The next book is called Veronica Talks to Boys. And the next book is called Race Home Veronica. And all of the books are inspired by situations that she encountered, and she's gotten a number of very beautiful letters from adolescent girls who read them, girls of all backgrounds, and they just say they really related to the struggles that Veronica was going through, about her struggle for self and acceptance, which we all want as kids, and Catherine and I never felt like we fit in. And so, in fact, kids would come up. My hair was way frizzier when I was younger, and hers was too, long and dark and very frizzy. And kids would come up to us and say, "You look like you stuck your finger in a light socket. Is your mom black?" And then in high school, when people would find out that my mom's black, they would either not call me anymore or actually use a racial slur to refer to her. One guy put a note on my locker saying his family said he couldn't visit my home anymore because my mother's black. Our mother just used those as teaching moments to say there will be people who don't accept you because of your racial background. And so that was a tough lesson, but real. So here's the really cool thing. We are two sisters writing and publishing our own books and our mother's book. We know of no other mother-daughters literary trio where the mom and the daughters are writing books of their own, drawing upon their family experience to write really interesting stories in fact and fiction, because Catherine's books are fiction, but mine tell our whole life story, and they talk about a lot of the things that I've overcome in my life. And so we just love to celebrate that we are two sisters writing and publishing our books and our mother's book. It's really beautiful. Without her story, we wouldn't be here. And thanks to her story, we have really fascinating content to draw from as we tell stories about what it's like to be the white-looking mixed-race child in a world where there was nobody like us at all. There weren't even any high-profile mixed-race people. Like right now, you could point to Barack Obama, Mariah Carey, Tiger Woods, Derek Jeter. There's no such people back then that we could point to and say, hey, they're mixed too. Nope, it was just us. And we certainly didn't know anybody who was mixed and looked like us. Made us all very unique, blazing our own trails in life. And we're very grateful for that. We miss our father, but we know he's here in spirit. So Catherine and I always like to take every possible opportunity to thank our mother.
We're so proud of you, Catherine. Thank you, Liz. You're awesome.
And our father, of course, for instilling us so many tremendously powerful qualities and values of hard work, determination, independence, the courage to start our own company, to blaze our own trail and specialize in writing memoirs by people with diverse voices, people who might not necessarily have been chosen by traditional media to be published. And so we love to showcase books by people with unique perspectives, just like our parents had and have. Catherine and I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you with all our hearts and souls to our mother, whom we admire tremendously, immensely grateful for showing us how to be strong, independent, successful women who are empowered with goals and visions and the ethics of hard work, integrity, and perseverance. And we also want to thank our mother for being an amazing grandmother and an amazing citizen. She specializes in making banana nut bread. She's done it for a long, long time. And when my son was in school, she would make dozens of loaves that we would deliver to all the teachers and administrators at his school. She would make them for the court bake sales. Now she'll bake dozens of loaves and take them to the local fire station or the soup kitchen, the people at the grocery store that she encounters every time she goes shopping. She delivers warm bread on Thanksgiving morning to her friends. It's just her signature act of kindness that people really, really appreciate. It's a gift. It's a gift. It's loving from the oven. It's something sweet that she gives to warm people's hearts, and they absolutely love it. She does so many kind things for so very many people, and she truly is the example of what a powerful, humble, and intelligent, ambitious, and kind-hearted woman should be.
There needs to be dialogue among women. Keep it going so we can support each other, so we can see where each other's been, and so we can help each other get to where we need to be. It is so important to keep your self-esteem way up here. Way up here. Keep it up here. The definition of self-esteem is confidence in your and self-assuredness in your self-worth and your abilities. Your self-worth and your abilities. And I say we start by looking at the self-worth, the worth that who's placed on us. God Almighty that's placed on us. It's immeasurable. So if His is way up here for our self-worth, why should we think we're way down here? Ladies, get your self-esteem up and take care of business and take care of each other and do what you need to do. And your motto should be, I got this.
Everybody say, I got this.
I got this. So, if you haven't read The Triumph of Rosemary, you can get it at Amazon.com and read her story. Everybody says it's like she's talking to you. They say they can't put it down. It's gripping because they feel like she's just sitting down and telling you her story. And that's literally what she did, because she had no background in writing and she didn't want to hear from her daughters about how to write a book. She just sat down and did it her way. And like the Elvis song goes, I did it my way. And she truly in her life has done it her way. Nobody could tell her what to do. In fact, her nickname is Captain or Cap. Our Saturday night family ritual was to sit down and watch The Love Boat at 9 o'clock and then Fantasy Island at 10 o'clock on ABC. We'd have a giant bowl of popcorn. It would be me, Catherine, our father, our mother, and that was our Saturday night ritual, and we couldn't have been happier in our family room watching The Love Boat and Fantasy Island. But The Love Boat features Captain Stubing, and we started calling our mother Captain because she's got a very take charge personality. So now we call her Cap. It's really fun. It's just really important to give some respect where respect is due. Catherine and I are so proud of our mother. We just really want to celebrate her and cherish her and showcase her. If you go to the triumphofrosemary.com, there's an awesome picture story with words that Catherine wrote that are really interesting and tells her story in a nutshell. Also read my story, God's Answer is No, Lessons from a Spiritual Life. You can go to godsanswersno.com if you'd like an autographed copy by me, or you can get it on Amazon in hardcover, paperback, and ebook. You can also read the Veronica series of young adult novels. They make an excellent gift for the young girl in your life, and they really share a whole different perspective. They're fictional based on experiences that Catherine actually had, and they're really fun. The covers are beautiful. Really, really proud of my sister for creating those young adult novels. I'm Elizabeth Ann Atkins. I'm really excited to share this story with you and this tribute from my heart, my sister's heart, to celebrate our mother, to celebrate the legacy that she created with our father that inspired us to create another legacy of a company, Two Sisters Writing and Publishing, that's actually preserving the legacies of all the people whose memoirs we either write and publish or published by individuals who wrote their own book. So it's all about legacy, it's all about love, and I hope that my story here today inspired you in some way, or perhaps motivated you to write your own story. Our stories are our legacy. Even if you never publish it, you should write it down, because people, your kids, your grandchildren, your relatives, for generations to come, will cherish knowing your story in your words. And we are immensely, immensely, immensely proud of our mother, Judge Marilyn E. Atkins, for writing her book, preserving her legacy on the pages of this beautiful book. To all the mothers out there, we celebrate you, we cherish you, and we want to send a giant burst of love, light, gratitude, and celebration to sparkle all over you, to know how special you are for bringing all of us into the world. And Catherine and I especially want to thank our mother with all our hearts and souls. We love you, Cap.